Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Energetics. Today, we are going to be talking about energetic boundaries with technology and how paying attention and setting these boundaries can really curate a restful home, not just for yourself, but for your pets and your family. A lot of what I know and have learned to not only be true, but benefit myself and my clients in this lifetime, I came to understand through my own personal experience. I didn't learn necessarily everything I know from books. A lot of what I learned was from growing up in a very energetically active home. My home growing up was a old fieldstone house that my great great grandfather built himself when he immigrated over to Canada. And the really fascinating thing about this house, not only is it fieldstone, but it's also built on top of a natural underground water system, and the water lines create a triangle around the house. So this house sits right smack dab in the middle of this triangle. And if you think about energy, you think of different triangles out in the world that are quite powerful, right? Just for reference point, the Bermuda Triangle. Not saying my house is the Bermuda Triangle, but the point I'm trying to make is it's very energetically heightened. And because of that, the energy in the house was really intense, and strange occurrences were very common, not just for myself, but for my parents, for my siblings, for people who lived there prior to us, family members. Sleep disturbances were very, very common. I don't think my sister slept in the house the entire time we lived there. Vivid dreams were also really prominent, and nightmares, especially. A lot of visions of the lady in the white dress. She liked to visit all of us in that house, as well as like diary pages slipping in front of us, and many different things that I could talk about for a very long time occurred in this home. Now, because of this, because it wasn't just me sensing energy, feeling intuitively, and seeing intuitively, because it was also family members, my father began to notice how the house was acting in one, different times of the year, but also how the energetic fields were creating an impact on not just our ability to sleep and my great grandmother's ability to function and sleep, but also our hydro bill was a plain as day physical proof that something was going on. So, a little backstory on that is our hydro bill started to really heighten and really become more and more expensive without really any reason. The energy being consumed in the house was skyrocketing. We had not changed anything. There was no devices. There wasn't a reason for it. Not a logical one anyways. And at the same time, we were having a lot of problems in the house with my siblings and I being really unsettled. Our pets were kind of going wild. My great grandmother was having a lot of angry outbursts and sleep issues. And so it got to the point where something was obviously going on. It was undeniable. And my dad just happened to run into a gentleman at the local sales barn who had experience with land energies like ley lines and so on and so forth. Now, the funny backstory on that is it was actually at a cattle sale, and the cattle wouldn't move through the chute, and so he got out his dowsing rods, moved some energy, and the cattle started flowing freely. And my dad, knowing what he does, was like, I should talk to this guy, maybe he can help us out at the farm. So this gentleman came out to the property and he had a look, and he was actually one of my first mentors. He was the one who I remember distinctly sitting on the couch and feeling him look at me and stare at me, and not in a creepy way, but in an inquisitive way, and looking over at him. And there was just this energetic exchange of she knows how to use these. And he actually had me stand up. He gave me the dowsing rods, just show me how you think they work. And immediately it was a response that um, was undeniable. I was dosing water at that point in time. That day had me dose water. He had me move through the house and shift and move energetic lines and frequencies. So it was pretty cool to have that experience. But what came about from that visit is I learned, as well as my family learned, a lot of tools that we could implement simply and safely to really protect our energetic boundaries within ourselves and within our home and our environment. So I'm going to share that with you today because that experience planted a seed in me very young that our homes carry energetic patterns just like our bodies do. And what we learned in that one evening spent with this gentleman has really changed how I look at my home and how I live within my home and how I teach my children to navigate energetics within their homes. So if you have children who are having night terrors, if you are having difficulty sleeping, if your house feels unsettled, if your pets are chasing things around the house and just barking at random corners, if your hydro bill is going off the charts unexplainably, or you're having dis-ease or disease within the home, this is something you definitely want to listen to, is this podcast, because after we start making small energetic adjustments, things will definitely start to change within your home and your body, and the changes will be noticeable, but they'll also be really practical, not just spiritual. But I really think they're going to make sense for you once you hear them, and some of these you may know. But let's dive in here, because as I said, energy in a home can become chaotic. And when electrical systems, underground water in my case, and emotional energy all interact, this is really going to shape how your home functions, both in an energetic level, but also where I'm talking about mental health, I'm talking about physical health and emotional well-being. So what I do in my own home now is, over the years, I began experimenting. Let's just backtrack, right? So over the years, I began experimenting with different ways to create calmer energetic fields within my own home. And this goes from, saging and creating a salt line around the house, which has been really beneficial at some points in time, to also doing things like placing cattle magnets outside of the home. So if you have ever heard of cattle magnets? And if not, they're just really powerful, strong magnets. These magnets, long story short, these magnets are put into the cow's stomach, where they collect all the debris or any debris that may be swallowed, and it can last a lifetime. So these are really powerful magnets, and you can find them just at any general co-op or online, I'm sure. But what I like to use them for in the house is to really deter energy loops that may be coming from transformers on the power lines outside of the house, or any stray energy from looping into the house. So what we did on the farm and what I have done in my home is bury cattle magnets out in the front yard, a good distance, probably like 12 feet, or as far as I can get away from my house, to prevent the energetic loops from looping into the front rooms of our house. And on the farm, we did that. We buried cattle magnets out by a transformer that we actually had on the property to ground that energy. And what we found is, back in that point in time, the hydro bill actually began to go down. But also, what we found in our home doing that where we live now is that my children's bedrooms were at the front of the house, so their nightmares actually decreased, which was really fascinating. So cattle magnets are just a way to deter energetic loops from those transformers or any stray energy around the external part of your home from looping into your house. So I love this tool and it's something that I will continue to do no matter where I live. So let's move on. So that is your home, but let's talk also about really simple, tangible changes you can make within your home, in your bedroom, right this minute. So if you are having trouble sleeping, if you're waking up with migraines or pains and aches, or you're not able to sleep well, I want you to examine your side tables and where your bed is. Because if your side tables both have an electric device on them, say your phones or two alarm clocks, one on either side, if you think about that line from one side of your bed to the other, that energetic line is going to go right across your head and your neck. And you might as well run an extension cord across your body because that energy is now creating a man made ley line from one side to the other. And it's going to really affect your sleep and your physical and mental and emotional well being. So, what I suggest is either having one side dedicated to electronics or make sure they're lower so that they're not going across your body or at the line of your head where you will sleep, or have them on the opposite side of the room. So we have a habit, a lot of us, of putting our phone right beside our head. Well, we know phones emit radiation, so let's just be a little bit more cautious and maybe put them down the floor. I find for myself, I'll plug my phone in, but I'll put it down on the floor rather than on my side table, and I sleep immensely better when I do that. So it's just small things you can do to really enhance your sleep. Try it, trial and error with these things, but I cannot stress enough having two devices on either side of your bed is just a big no-no in the energetics world. So the other thing within your home and within your bedroom is really noticing where the head of your bed is. I was taught by the gentleman that came into our home to really maneuver and shift the energetics when I was young is that the head of your bed, where your head is, should always be facing west or north, never south and never east. I personally can attest to this being true for me. Whenever I've had my head facing east, I've had massive nightmares, and I'm sure my parents can attest to this as well. The head of the bed is always at the northwest or west. So, some science and some evidence has been done around this. It has come back inconclusive on whether sleeping with your head towards magnetic north disrupts sleep or east disrupts sleep. Now, it is thought that brainwaves can be, or sleep phases can be influenced by the direction of your head of your bed or the way you sleep, for instance, west east, because of the Earth's magnetic pull. And it's thought that the direction in which you sleep can affect your brain waves, your EEG waves within your brain, within your body, and really help elevate your sleep. There's also different beliefs, cultural beliefs and feng shui that really advise against sleeping certain directions because they believe it's causing disrupted sleep, high blood pressure, and headaches due to magnetic field interference. So there is a lot to be said about the direction in which you sleep. So for me, it's always a northwest or a west and never a straight due north or an east or south. It's always how I have looked at things and how I find we sleep best in this house. Now, if that isn't doable to have your bed, the head of your bed facing west or northwest, try and find a direction which feels good for you. So how we do that is simply letting your body direct you as to which way it feels best. And we can really overthink this, but what I want you to think about as you decipher, well, how do I even do this, Sarah? How do I even know? Well, if you're like me, sometimes you feel like you just need to change furniture around or clean or rearrange a space. That's yourself rearranging the energy in your home, in your rooms, so that it flows more freely. It is the same sensation as, oh, I feel like I want to put this here. So listen to that, see how you sleep, trial and error, move things around. If you've ever been in a hotel room and you're like, I just can't sleep, and it's not because of noise, it's just because it feels wrong the way you're sleeping, or you've woken up sideways in bed instead of head to foot, those are all indicators that your body is naturally shifting. Granted, you're healthy and there's no external influences. So really trust yourself, trial and error. You've got this. It is something that you can definitely decipher between you and a partner, or just noticing your kids and if they're sleeping better with their head this way or that way. With the electromagnetic fields within the homes, those two alarm clocks, also that applies to your kids' space. And I want to just circle back on that for a second, because if they have electronics in their space, if they have a gaming computer or a Nintendo, or they have their phone plugged in, or a Google Earth, or not a Google Earth, but a Google or an Alexa or anything like that, really be mindful about where they are in their room. Same with baby monitors, right? So really pay attention. This all interplays with each other. And when you have one thing, it's one frequency, but when you have multiple things compiling in your space, right? If the head of your bed is facing east and that's giving you nightmares, and then on top of that, you have those two alarm clocks or two phones on either side of your bed, that's adding to it. So you can see how things can start to compile and build. The next thing that is super important, and it's something that I was actually reminded of this past week, is mirrors. Mirrors, especially in the bedroom, they hold an immense, the word I want to say is pressure, but presence within the bedroom. You think about what they do, they reflect. Well, if you have a mirror in front of, say, a washer or dryer, that energy is just going to start bouncing. If you have a mirror and it's facing another mirror, again, you have this line of exchange. It's bouncing back and forth. So, in my experience, I put a mirror in my bedroom, and it is an internal facing mirror. So, what that means is it doesn't face outwards, internal wall to external wall, it faces external wall to internal wall. And what happened is when I put this mirror in my room and it was facing internally, I started to have the worst nightmares. And for me, that's something I know I'm sensitive to. Mirrors and me, for whatever reason, have a pretty close connection. So, my rule of thumb, and one that I was actually taught by the gentleman who came into our home again when we lived on the farm in this stone house, was to never have any internal facing mirrors. They should all be external. And the reasoning for that is he believed that internal facing mirrors bounces energy back into your home. So that energy is just going to bounce around. So think of it as having a web of energy shooting around your house with no exit. Whereas if it was the opposite way, you would still have the benefits of the mirror, but the energy and the excess would then release outwards through a window, or so on and so forth. So the energy would be more balanced. And when we think about energy and the power of mirrors, we have to remember that mirrors act as really powerful tools for manipulating energy and serving both functional, physical, and spiritual purposes. In engineering, mirrors are used to concentrate solar radiation for renewable energy, but in feng shui, they are used to amplify positive chi and really expand spaces and correct, or quote unquote cure, negative energy flows by reflecting light and views into a space. So mirrors can really act as wonderful tools for amplifying, but they can also cause havoc and really create a chaotic energy when they bounce energy between them. So, just some general tips for when you really want to dive into your decor, and if you're trying everything and nothing's working, give your mirrors a adjustment and see what happens that when you do. So mirrors in the bedroom, definitely a no when they're facing inwards. But let's talk about, we've talked about bed placement in the sense of the head of the bed facing north, but let's just rewind and talk about what else we can do here. So we've looked at the bed placement, we've looked at making sure that we do not have electrical devices on either side, that our mirrors are facing inwards, not outwards, they're not facing one another. But we want to also avoid placing the bed directly in alignment with electrical panels, furnaces, refrigerators, if you have a mini fridge in your room, right? Large appliances, major power boxes, because these create subtle electromagnetic fields which can impact your health and sleep and overall well-being. And one story I can share is I had a friend, she has two daughters and their bedrooms were downstairs, and she couldn't understand why they weren't sleeping. They weren't sleeping, they couldn't get them to settle. And I stayed over one night in one of the girls' room. I was babysitting, so I stayed down there trying to get them settled. And what I found was I couldn't settle either. There was just so much what felt like electricity pumping through their space, and it almost gave you the creeps, like there was something walking, like you had like a little bit of a portal moving through the rooms. And when I talked to her about it the next day and shared how my experience was without knowing what she had been experiencing, she really validated that everything I was sensing, her and her husband and the kids have also sensed. And so what when we further examined the space was that on one side they had the furnace and water heater on one side of the room, and on the other side of the room they had a chest freezer and a fridge. So their bedroom was directly in between these two major electrical components. So with a little bit of shifting and a little bit of adjusting the magnetic lines, the energetic lines within the home, we were able to find some subtle shifts which worked so that they could find more ease. The house felt calmer. And one way we did that was using Epsom salts on their electrical panel and around major electrical outputs. The Epsom salts grounded the energy so that it wasn't straying immensely into their space, which I love to use on all electrical panels or major appliances, is just getting a big jug of Epsom salt and putting it there. The other thing that when you've done the things that we've talked about previously and it's still not working is what I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, is what some call burping the house or saging the house. We want to clear the air within our home, open those windows, get things moving. We want to sage or smoke cleanse the house, however that feels best for you and your beliefs. I love to use sage. I have a beautiful sage that was gifted to me by the women and elders from Saugeen First Nations. So I love to use that in my space to clear and shift the energies and move stale energy out and really kind of bless my home. And I've done this since, oh gosh, since my kids were very little, because when they felt unsettled, they would come and ask me if we could do that smelly, smoky stuff around the house because they felt more settled. And what I also found is when I saged and quote unquote burped the house and cleared the house, my pets would also be calmer. They wouldn't be running around chasing after things. Everything in the space just energetically reset. The energetic atmosphere became more at ease and more grounded. And this is something I also do after every client session I have within my office. Otherwise, it's kind of like when you walk into a space and you can feel something was just there, whether it was a disturbance or something really gentle and calm, you can feel those things. So these are just really tangible ways in which you can take action today to shift the energies of your house. We can really begin by moving electronics away from your bed. Clear the energy of your home regularly. You can pay attention to how your body feels in certain rooms and adjust accordingly. You can pay attention to how others in your home are feeling. Are your kids having nightmares? Are your pets kind of bouncing off the wall? Those can be indicators for an electromagnetic shift needing to happen within your space and place. We can reduce electrical clutter near our sleep areas and ground ourselves before bed. And this is a big one, and this is where we're going to kind of end today. Is one thing I say to everyone is bare feet on the grass. if you don't have grass, the snow. Getting your bare feet on some kind of earth in some capacity is going to help you ground in the most beautiful way, the most effective way. So if you can, before you go to bed, take those socks off, go step on the grass or in the snow and just breathe for 3 rounds of breath, and just see if that subtle shift, that subtle action can really shift how you find ease in your time of sleep and recovery and rejuvenation. So grounding yourself before bed, if you can't get your feet on the grass, I like to have a shower, have a bath, imagining everything washing away from my day, out of my energetic field, out of the body, letting that visual of having those kind of onion layers peeling away, or the water dripping over your body, cleansing and clearing. You can even use your breath if you are laying in bed. You can envision yourself breathing in this beautiful warm white or yellow light from your nose to your toes. And then as you exhale, imagine that breath exhaling out in a gray fog of anything that's been holding on or is ready to release. That exhale, that gray fog out through the breath. So inhale, you can do toes to nose up through the front body, and then exhale that gray fog from head to heels back into the earth. Inhale, toes to nose. Let that breath come in, warm the body up and overhead, and then exhale. Imagine that breath moving down your back body, that gray fog shifting and clearing and sinking into the earth, releasing from your body, from your energetic field, from your space. So, really tangible things we can do to change our environment, change our own electromagnetic field, and that within our home. So, remember, sometimes small environmental changes can create big nervous system shifts. Our homes are not just physical spaces, they are energetic ecosystems that shape how our bodies rest, recover, and feel safe. So, creating energetic boundaries in your home through these actions can support deeper sleep, clearer energy, and a calmer nervous system. If you found this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to the Seasons of the Goddess podcast. If you resonated and really found benefit, please leave a 5-star review. This podcast does not make me any money. It simply allows me to share more tips and tricks of what I found to be beneficial and helpful in my world of energetics, so that I can help others find some benefit and tips and tricks for themselves to implement within their family and their home space. So please subscribe, share, and leave a 5-star review. And if you're looking for more resources, you can head over to my website, healingwithsarah.ca, or follow along on YouTube at Healing with Sarah. And you can find lots of free resources, meditations, energetic clearings, and activations for you to use on a day-to-day basis. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.